The 20th century proved to be a turbulent time for Britain, and indeed for Huddersfield, in a variety of ways. From the struggle for women's suffrage, led locally by prominent campaigner Florence Lockwood, to the increase in dissatisfaction of liberalism and the politicisation of social movements, which saw local figures such as George Garside of the Colne Valley becoming Britain's first socialist county councillor. It has been argued extensively as to how much the outbreak of the First World War contributed to the progression of such movements, and indeed in many cases is still being argued a century later. What is inarguable, however, is the impact the First World War had on the individuals and families who lived through it day by day. Their experiences may have been very different. Their beliefs may have meant that they were considered to be conscientious objectors to the war, but one thing is for certain. Regardless of political affiliation, faith and creed, the First World War would change their lives forever. This Soundwalk will lead you through the footsteps and experiences of a Huddersfield soldier who was a member of the Duke of Wellington's Rest Riding Regiment at the outbreak of war in 1914. All names are pseudonyms in order to protect the families involved, but all accounts are factual and are comprised of actual diary extracts written by various local soldiers on the front lines.
Owing to the summary rejection by the German government of the request made by His Majesty's government for assurances that the neutrality of Belgium will be respected, His Majesty's ambassador in Berlin has received his passport, and His Majesty's government has declared to the German government that a state of war exists between Great Britain and Germany.
You are now standing outside the Town Hall, where at mid-morning on the 5th of August 1914, 450 men and officers of the 2nd 5th Battalion, the Dukes, were formed in rank and file, waiting to receive the regimental colours and march off to fulfil their first orders of the war. They were to guard a naval wireless station along with the water and electricity works at Waltham near Grimsby in Lincolnshire. Having only just returned back the day before from battalion training, the troops marched off with mixed attitudes. You are now stood in Market Square, and although not on the main parade route that the troops would have taken, it would become an increasingly important part of Huddersfield in terms of volunteer recruitment throughout the following months. As reported in the diaries of Florence Lockwood, Market Square would become used as one of the main locations for Army recruitment volunteer units to set up their stalls in Huddersfield. Despite popular belief, the patriotic scramble for enrolment was not as fully supported as might have been expected. Nationally, by the end of 1914, 1,186,357 men had volunteered for service, which would have certainly supported the notion that World War I was indeed a popular war. Huddersfield had sent off between 7,000 to 8,000 loved ones. After all, it was supposed to be won by Christmas, and who wouldn't want a piece of that glory? Throughout Britain, however, and certainly in Huddersfield, the response to war was certainly not clear-cut. Local historian and expert Cyril Pearce highlights that Huddersfield was a much cloudier brew of social pressure. Often associated with Huddersfield's anti-war stance, throughout 1915, local recruitment into the army began to tail off in this region. On the morning of the 5th of August 1914, the market would have been hosting its weekly wool day. Alive with the hustle and bustle of trade, the news of the outbreak of war was still setting in with many local people. Conflict was indeed expected, but that was in response to the increase in violence in Ireland at this time, not in areas that many people might well have not have known existed. A sense of shock certainly echoed throughout the Huddersfield community. Throughout the morning, efforts were made to clear a path through the square, which at this time had trams running on the small road next to the square, to ensure that the troops could march directly onto the station without any problems. Accounts show that this went to plan, and the troops promptly entered the station building and simply filed onto the platforms, instead of having any ceremonial send-off. The event has been described as a much muted event. It was met with mixed reactions and reservations, with Huddersfield not experiencing the extensive celebrations witnessed in other towns throughout Britain. Goodbyes were said, hands were shook, and the best of luck was wished. Huddersfield just seemed to take it all in its stride. After saying their final farewells, the men of the Duke's battalion were loaded onto trains which were bound for Hull. At 11 minutes past 12 on the 5th of August 1914, the first wave of men from Huddersfield set off on their journey in response to Britain's hour of need. Ben Wilkins writes home to his wife to tell of his first experiences of training and army life in the war.
My dearest Evelyn, I hope this letter finds you well. Training has been going well, and I've been having a spiffing time with the rest of the lads. I was up for parade again at 7 this morning, and then straight onto Swedish drill. By Jove, they gave us what for, I can tell you. This afternoon was a little easier though, and we had a rifle lecture. Can you do me a favour, my love? The next time you see Percy, can you make sure he's okay? I'm awfully sorry to hear Miss Wilson has left him. And another thing, my love, did you pick up my suit from Paviar & Co? I can tell you I'm looking forward to wearing it and getting out of these BDs. Got examined by the doc earlier. Some of the lads didn't make it, and some are already in hospital with rheumatic problems from sleeping on the floors. Please don't worry too much, my darling, because the Kaiser will be near his doom once he knows a certain person has joined the colours. You will notice I have begun numbering my letters. Will you do the same? It's just in case one may miss you, so you can't think I'm forgetting you. For all I am so far from home, I'm certainly thinking of you. We'll write soon, my love. Eternally yours, Ben.
The initial Duke's Battalion began to arrive in Hull, along with other regiments, including a special reserve of Lancashire Fusiliers. The early days, weeks and even months of the war was filled with an unproven policy of mobilisation. Never before in history had such numbers of men been recruited to the army, and never before had the entire country been engaged in a war on the home front. Many of the troops were billeted in large buildings throughout Hull, such as concert halls and schools. A high level of uncertainty in terms of what to do with such a high volume of men was evident, and as a consequence, the Dukes experienced numerous different training postings during 1914 and into spring of 1915. The most extended stays were at Great Coats for 5 weeks, where they experienced long intensive training, musketry training and glorious days of sunshine, and at Ribby Park near Grimsby when they went onto canvas until the end of September 1914. This period in Huddersfield, up until October 1914, saw the forming of the 2nd 4th Battalion, which was filled with further local volunteers. Numerous camps were established throughout the Colne Valley, and accounts tell of the atrocious wet weather at this time, which delayed training schedules. Battalion headquarters and the initial Dukes were moved to Doncaster in November 1914. The men were billeted in schools, and accounts mention the friendliness of the Doncaster people, many of which kept in touch after leaving. Training would continue separately in Doncaster and throughout the Colne Valley for the different battalions of the Dukes until April 15. On the 10th of April, the 2nd 4th Battalion, who had formerly been training in camps in the Colne Valley, would for the first time join the longer serving troops of the 2nd 5th Battalion at Doncaster. 2 days later, on April 12th, the men were loaded onto various modes of transport and set off for what would be their final voyage before meeting the enemy. Surprisingly of high spirits, the Dukes set sail from Southampton. Accounts record an uneventful crossing, and the Dukes landed at Have, and the battalion reformed on the 15th of April. Ben Wilkins writes home to Huddersfield on the Channel crossing.
Dearest Evelyn, we are getting nearer the great event. Don't be worried. It is not right that I should have an awfully good time and you not to share it. I hope you are well, and my thoughts and love are reaching you. It already feels like a lifetime since I saw you, and I fear it will be a good time yet until we shall meet. I'm not sure how long I will be here, my love, as I fear the situation abroad is only going to get worse. Chin up though, sweetheart. Do me a favour, don't send me any more chocolate. Send me some cigs and a little pipe instead. A bit of money and a cake, writing paper, a little boiled currant pudding, and I've only gone and lost my bloody knife and spoon, so send me them too with my number on it. Give Gladys a kiss and a cuddle from me. Yours, Ben.
Tommy's optimism was representative of a large number of soldiers heading for the front. The reality of war, however, was soon to become a wake-up call for everyone involved. Upon arrival in France, the Dukes were first deployed in reserves to the small farming town of Flobay.
My dearest Ev, thank you for your letter. I got it this morning. I really enjoyed reading it. Well, we're about 4 or 5 miles behind the firing line, but we can still hear the Jack Johnsons whistling down on the front line. That were the big guns like, you know, and the crackling of them own guns. There were a few planes flying about over us as well. Oh, it was a sight. I've never seen anything like it before. Were quite exciting really, apart from the mud. Oh, and the nationalities too, there were loads of different folk. Indians, Scotch, French, Belgians and us like.
The Dukes were in reserve in Flobay until June 1915, when they were moved forward and saw intense action at Ypres salient.
My darling Evelyn, I hope you are well. Thank you again for your letter. I'm glad Gladys is getting on with the next door neighbour's kid. On this occasion, number 16 platoon were the first pasty in the oven of the 5th Battalion to go into the trenches. Bullets were whistling over our heads. One actually passed between me and my pal. The Germans were only about 200 yards from us. I gave them a few rounds of rapid fire already, just to let them know that we were here. A poor chap in our trench was killed on Wednesday night. He were writing home. He must have been stretching, and he must have shown his nut over at parapet. Result was he got half his head blown off. Oh, it is terrible over here, Eve. If it's not raining metal, it's been attacked by lice. If it's not the lice, it's disease from all my dead pals. We are still hoping for another day's rest before we're all killed, but I fear there is a push coming, and I will soon be over the top. I haven't met a single man or horse of the English, French or German army that doesn't want this war to end. Oh, I do miss you, Eve. All yours, Ben.
The battalions of the Dukes were engaged in some of the fiercest battles throughout the war, including contact at Thiepval, Vancouver, Newport, and they would also see a return to the Ypres salient. The average life expectancy of a lieutenant serving on the front line during the Great War was just 6 weeks, and with the high level of injuries being sustained, many being sent home and treated at Royds Hall War Hospital in Huddersfield, it was only a matter of time until our very own Ben would succumb to the harsh realities of trench warfare.
Volleyball's in the bucket, lads! If you live, you get them back! If you live, you get them back. Good lads! Volleyball's in the bucket! Boy!
Hold your nerve, boys! Remember, it's not too far to go. There's a way through. Run fast, keep your wits about you, keep your eyes open, and God and the King will keep an eye on you. Company will fix bayonets! Fix bayonets!
Listen to your sergeant! If anybody turns back, if any one of our boys comes running towards you, you take this rifle and you shoot them dead. Do you understand?
Huddersfield, along with every other town in the country, paid a heavy price for Britain's involvement in the Great War. Of the brave men from Huddersfield who went to fight for king and country, a total of around 4,500 men were either killed or injured. The memorial cross you stand beside is in fact a market cross. However, over the years it has evolved to become a monument of memorial. Being central to town, it has over the years took on a role of a memorial, with the placing of poppy wreaths, used in memorial walks on Remembrance Day, present-day peace demonstrations, and still remains a key location for the people of Huddersfield to remember their fallen heroes.
Oh, Alice, have you heard about Mrs. Atkins' husband?
No, I haven't, love. What?
His brother wrote to our Jack the other day and said he'd been killed with mustard gas. It's terrible, you know, this damn bloody war. I hope there ain't no more.
O men of the West Riding, heritage is yours. If glorious name is memory, shall live while time endures. He who to victory led you, and tyranny laid low, on that red field in Belgium, 100 years ago.